Hello. Thanks for tuning in today. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name's Michael Chiodini. I've been a financial advisor now for, 20 years. I was blessed very early in my career to have my son Dylan brought into my life. My wife gave birth to Dylan in 2005, and unfortunately, Dylan had a cardiac arrest at a very young age, and that caused the brain damage. And he's got diagnosis of cerebral palsy. Today, he's 15, and he does not talk, walk, sit up, roll over, or have any independence or care for himself. So we provide all of his care. But experiencing that with Dylan early in my life and in my career, I just knew I had to do things differently. I felt like as a parent of a child with a disability, like, what do I do now? And, it used to be planning for college was the option. And at some point I realized that probably wasn't going to be the course for us. So I began to try to understand, what do I have to do now? And, I got a lot of bad advice. I was being told by attorneys and accountants and various professionals to do this or that. And I spent a lot of money on a lot of wasted documents and a lot of wasted advice. And so I really took it upon myself, to learn, to understand both the legal, the financial, as well as the government infrastructure of benefits, and just really how does that impact my son and the other families that I may come into in this new journey in life. And wow, what I found out was just quite amazing. There's so much information that families seem to not be able to get their hands on, whether it's just not looking in the right places, and or the people that maybe we look to share that information to us, they don't know, and they aren't aware of what's there. So what is special needs planning? And I like to break it down into three main areas. The first thing is what I call a letter of intent. And really it's, you as a parent or as a caregiver, really sitting down and thinking about what is it that you want for your child's future? What is it that you want for your loved one? And what is that going to look like? So I use the example of, if your default option and you're okay with the option of, like for Dylan, it would be a nursing home. I'm just not really comfortable with that, though. I look at it and think, I don't want him in a nursing home at, say 35 or 45 years of age, when there's, everybody around him's, in their 80s and 90s. I really want him living in his own home that we created, that we've built for him in our community, with the resources around him that can help support him in his own home. And I think that's really important. But because of that, my plan will look different than if I went with the default option. And so we really want to address that with families and understand what is your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations, what are your goals for where your child's life is going to be spent, and who you want them to be around, and people you want them to be avoiding, and just really all the things that are in your mind and your heart that you really need to get down on paper, or in our case, a video. We felt it was really difficult to teach someone how to do physical therapy and occupational therapy, even getting him on a horse, for example, for therapeutic horsemanship. So we decided to videotape a day in his life and just kind of show someone all the things that it takes to do in his life to care for him, from changing his diaper, to transitioning and transferring him, to using a Hoyer lift, to using the van lift, to making his food. Like, we make his food every day from scratch because of all of his allergies, and you can't just buy it in the store. We have to put it together. It's based with coconut milk, and it's really important, and somebody needs to know that. Tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And if my wife and I aren't home one day, we don't come home, the folks that we've looked to take over this role, they really need a manual, a manuscript, and they need that letter of intent. And, our goal is really help families work through what is that letter of intent. And I really believe that first step brings you into the next two steps, right? The next two steps, first of which is the legal work. We have to create our legal plan. We call it an estate plan. It can come in different varieties and look in different ways. But what I've found is it tends to be, one of three ways in which families do this. They do it with a will. And inside that will, there's special needs provisions that say when you don't come home and you're not here, that all your money is to go into a special type of trust, which we'll get to in a moment, for that loved one in your family that has a disability. The other way is to have what I've done, which is a family revocable trust, where we have all of our stuff. I call it a shoebox, in a shoebox, where we put our stuff and we name who's going to go be in charge of that shoebox when we're not here. But while we're here, we're in charge of it. And we control all the decisions of what's in it, what's out of it, and what happens to it. But inside of that shoebox, think of it as three little ring boxes, little sub boxes, one of which is for Dylan, and it's called a special needs trust. And it's going to be very important that we understand why we need that. And the third way is you could just do a standalone special needs trust, which we've also done, where essentially you're creating it today. It exists today. It has a tax ID today. It can open and own stuff today and receive things today. And we've done that, and other families have done that. Typically, it's because someone other than mom and dad are likely going to be leaving that individual money. So really important under the estate planning that we look at what a family's needs are going to look like and what is appropriate for their situation, and trying to do it within the most cost-effective way too. We don't want to just randomly buy a bunch of documents that we don't need. But it's really important that we also work with attorneys that have a specialty in this area. It's just not every attorney that does a will knows how to do special needs trusts. So it's really important that we help families, seek out those experts in those areas. And, it's, our job to vet those individuals and to make sure that they're, looking at the documents and writing the type of language that we want and that feeds into the government benefits and the infrastructure that allows for these benefits to be protected. So what are those benefits and what's that third piece? Well, the third piece is really the financial component, because if you've got a letter of intent and you know that you've now created an estate plan that's going to protect future benefits, my job is to understand and try to help that family forecast what the financial impact is for their loved one. Essentially, how much money needs to be there if I don't come home today, to make sure that Dylan has that lifestyle and all the things he needs, no matter how long we're here, and no matter how long he lives. The idea of running out of money is just not an option. And so we need to run through those mathematical calculations to figure out, what is it going to take and how much is going to need to be there. So going back to it, to kind of circle back around into what a special needs trust is, because I think that's a very important thing to know, is that the government created a law in 1993 through the OBRA Act. And in that law, they provided an avenue for an individual or family that has a loved one with a disability to be able to save money and save money for the future and not disrupt or count towards any state or federal means tested benefits. What that usually is SSI and Medicaid. So a lot of your social services, they will look at the resources of mom and dad if the child's under the age of 18, and they'll say, oh, mom and dad, you make too much money, you have too much in the bank, they're not eligible for anything. That's true sometimes, but in other times it's not. In some states, you have what are called waiver programs. So there are programs like in the state of Missouri, for example, it's called the Sarah Lopez waiver, where they look at the medical needs of the individual, not the financial resources of the parents. They waive those resources. They solely look at the individual and determine, is this individual more financially costly to the system to have in an institutional type setting, or is it more financially beneficial to have them in their own home living with their family? And if so, can therefore sometimes provide access to that waiver, and the word waiver meaning waiving the parents' resources for eligibility. So it's really important that people understand that a special needs trust is designed specifically to put money and resources away for a person with a disability so that it does not disrupt Medicaid and social services or any other means tested benefit, and that is solely for the benefit of the individual with a disability, nobody else. No one else can benefit from this money. It's for their benefit. And furthermore, as parents, we get to decide, when something happens to Dylan, where does this money go? It's our decision to where it goes. And we've chosen many of things, some nonprofit organizations that we feel are going to be very instrumental in his life and making him as independent as possible, but also his siblings, making certain that our funds stay inside of our family, I think is important. It's a wish that we have. So with that said, I think it's really important under the kind of the third component. So you have the letter of intent, the estate planning, and then the financial planning, where we're looking through the veil of special needs planning, right? So it's just not an everyday financial plan. We're trying to we're planning for my retirement as well as the retirement of my child. So it's essentially two retirements, and we have to quantify the financial value of what that looks like. And you walking through the letter of intent to establish what that lifestyle looks like, we can come up with a monthly figure, and then in that we can back that into essentially, assuming life expectancies of what your child's going to need. And every plan's not perfect. I always say you try to do the best job that you can, and you hope to finance or fund as much of it as you can, just like with any goal you have. But sometimes we find it that the number's pretty big, and we're going to do the best job we can. Just like with anything, we wake up every day and we just try to give the best job we can to our loved ones and to our children and to supporting them. And I think for us, that is extremely important. And I think with the right set of tools that we can really help families develop a special needs plan that protects state and federal resources, that unlocks and gains access to programs and services that are in the community for individuals, and also wrap their head around making, giving them the comfort, if you would, of knowing that, there's going to be a plan in place if, God forbid, something were to happen, and that there's the financial support to go with that plan. And I think that's great. We live in the greatest country in the world, but if you don't have any money, it's not so great. And so as much as we want to hope and provide and pray that the services and the infrastructure of the government will be there, we cannot always rely on it. And I think as a parent, just having a plan in place that protects my son and his independence and his livelihood, I think is extremely important. And so we would love the opportunity to help families. And so if you think that this is something that would serve your family and that you would get more educated on how to better prepare, we would love for you to reach out. Our website is www.cfgmo.com. My phone number 314-686-4620. And my assistant Jill Smith is a wonderful person. She herself is a parent of a child with a disability, and so we eat, breathe, and sleep this all day long. And I say there's never a situation, never a problem that we haven't been able to solve. We know what we're doing, and for the last 15 years of my life, I've been able to serve families, and I truly enjoy it. So thank you all, and thank you for the time of today and looking at my video. Have a great day.